All right, welcome back, everybody, for another deep dive.
Yeah.
And today we're looking at...
a big one.
Yeah, a big one.
Mm-hmm.
A potential data exposure risk within Oracle NetSuite's SuiteCommerce platform.
Right.
So we've got cybersecurity reports, news articles.
Legal filings.
Legal filings. This is a big one.
Yeah, it is.
So...
Lots to unpack.
Yeah, so our goal here is to help you understand what went wrong.
Why it matters.
Why it matters and what's being done to about it.
Right.
And... trust me, this is way more than like a technical glitch.
Oh, yeah.
This is like alleged corporate negligence, a whistleblower, and investigations all over the place.
Yeah, yeah.
So
what's interesting here is that it's all about how businesses are configuring the platform.
interesting.
Like, think of it as a security system that has all the right parts.
Okay.
But it's installed wrong.
So it's not like a broken lock.
Exactly.
It's a lock on the wrong door.
That's a great way to put it.
Okay.
Yeah, so... just to lay it all out, Oracle NetSuite's SuiteCommerce platform, this is what businesses use to build those websites where you buy things, those e-commerce websites you see everywhere.
Right.
And inside NetSuite, they have something called custom record types.
Custom record types.
CRTs. And
Sure.
these let businesses, tailor how they organize their data.
Okay, so like adding custom shelves to a warehouse.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah, each type of product gets its own special spot.
Okay, but where does the data exposure come in?
So the problem is when those CRTs, the access controls for them, get misconfigured, and this sensitive customer data.
Like on those e-commerce sites.
On those e-commerce sites. So
Okay.
things like names, addresses, phone numbers.
Right, all the stuff we want to keep safe.
Exactly.
Like someone's browsing an online store and they accidentally stumble upon this data.
Not exactly.
Okay.
It's not as easy as just looking at a website.
Right?
So the APAMI report, this is like one of the big sources we're looking at today. It says unauthenticated users could get to this data through NetSuite's APIs.
APIs.
Yeah, applicational programming interfaces. They're like the messengers that let different software systems talk to each other.
Okay, so like digital couriers.
Exactly.
Delivering data back and forth.
Yeah, so like if someone knows how to use these APIs, they can basically skip the storefront and get into the warehouse backroom.
Ooh, sneaky.
Yeah, and that's exactly what the researchers who found this were able to do. They made a proof of concept. They got in.
Really? And so they used these specific API calls like load record and search record
Exactly.
to get access to information that should have been protected.
Yeah, stuff that should have been locked up tight.
So they did all this without even needing like a login or a password.
That's the scary part.
Wow.
It's like knowing the name of the CRT is like having a key to a specific shelf in that warehouse.
Okay.
And using those API calls, load record and search record, they can pull stuff off those shelves without permission.
Wow, okay.
And the report, it actually has these diagrams that map out how this all works.
Really?
For both those API calls, yeah. It's kind of wild to see how exposed that data could be if those CRTs aren't set up right.
This is sounding like a pretty big deal. Like how many websites are we even talking about here?
Potentially thousands of live SuiteCommerce websites.
Thousands?
Yeah, and what's worse, a lot of businesses might not even know they have this problem.
So like if they didn't even mean to set up an e-commerce store.
Yeah, but they have a default site running.
Oh, so they use NetSuite for other stuff.
Right.
But they have this like basic online shop they never even really use.
Exactly, like a backdoor to your warehouse that you didn't even know was open.
Oh, that's not good.
Not good at all.
All right, so that's a pretty clear picture of what happened and how big this could be.
Yeah, we've laid it all out.
So let's move on and talk about what this all means, because this isn't just about some data being out in the open.
No, this is way bigger than that.
Yeah.
This has some serious implications.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, what are the consequences here?
I mean, it's bad. It's
Yeah.
bad for businesses. It's bad for customers. For
Yep.
businesses, you're talking big fines, lawsuits, all the costs of fixing this mess.
Yeah.
And then, of course, there's the damage to your reputation.
Right. Like, how do you regain customer trust?
Exactly. You can't really put a price on that.
Right.
And for the customers, I mean, this is identity theft, financial fraud.
Yeah, all the cybercrime nightmare.
It's their personal information that's at stake.
Right, right.
And then you layer on all the legal and regulatory stuff.
Oh, yeah.
It gets even more complicated.
Okay.
So in the U.S., you've got potential HIPAA violations if they expose protected health information.
Right,
And then the EU, they have GDPR.
right.
Very strict rules about data breaches.
So even if a company isn't, like, directly targeted, they could still be in trouble just because they have this vulnerability.
That's the thing. It's not about what you meant to do. It's about responsibility.
Okay.
And it doesn't stop there.
Oh, no.
You've got investigations by, like, Mexico's IAR, Canada's OPC,
Right.
plus the FTC and SEC in the U.S. could come after them for deceptive practices and not telling investors about this risk.
Wow, so this is truly a global issue.
It is, yeah.
But didn't we hear about this vulnerability a while ago?
Yeah, that's what the whistleblower comes. Senior project manager at NetSuite
Mm-hmm.
and a founding member of their SuiteCommerce group.
Okay.
He found this vulnerability back in 2023.
So he was actually there, like, building the system that has this problem.
He was, and he says he reported it to Oracle.
Internally?
Internally, yeah.
Okay.
Sending emails. He even made a LinkedIn post in January 2025.
Oh, wow.
Trying to raise the alarm.
Right.
But instead of being, the hero, he says he faced retaliation.
Really?
Yeah, according to his filings and emails, he was kicked out of partner programs.
Oh, wow.
And people were saying bad things about him. He says he has proof.
So system records, emails, all that stuff.
The whole 9 yards, he says.
So it's kind of a he said, they said situation.
It is.
What does Oracle say?
Well, they've said publicly that this isn't a security problem with their product.
Okay.
They say it's a misconfiguration, their customer's fault.
Okay.
They're like, hey, we give everyone the instructions. It's up to them to use them, right?
Right.
It's more than that.
Okay.
He says this misconfiguration thing is so common and could be so bad that it basically is a security flaw.
Okay.
And that Oracle should have done more to stop it.
Like design the platform better.
Exactly, even if it meant making it harder to configure.
So build in more safeguards.
Right, and he says Oracle didn't warn customers enough about this risk.
Even after he told them.
Yeah, so he's saying they weren't transparent.
Okay.
But he's not just complaining.
He's taking action.
Yeah, he filed complaints with regulators.
EU GDPR folks?
Yeah, and they've actually given him whistleblower protection.
Wow.
And he's got a campaign on StockTwits to get investors' attention.
So he's really going for it.
Oh, yeah, and it's working.
Yeah.
Investors, analysts, even lawyers are paying attention.
Okay.
This thing is huge, could have consequences for Oracle all over the world.
So this has gone way beyond a technical glitch.
Oh, yeah, this is about corporate responsibility, data security,
Right.
and whether whistleblowers can hold powerful companies accountable.
Absolutely. And while we wait to see how this plays out, let's talk about what our listeners can do to protect themselves if they're using NetSuite SuiteCommerce.
Yeah, that's important.
Like, where do you even start? Yeah, like if you're listening to this thinking, hold on, do I even use NetSuite?
Right. That's a good question.
Like, where do you even start figuring that out?
I mean, not everyone's a tech whiz, right?
Right.
You might not even know all the software your company uses.
Yeah.
But there are a few things you can do.
Okay.
First off, if you're dealing with online sales or managing customer data, talk to your IT department.
Right. Or whoever handles your e-commerce stuff.
Exactly. See if they're using NetSuite and specifically SuiteCommerce.
And if they are, what then?
Well, that Upon report we keep talking about, they have some great advice.
Okay.
Those researchers really dug into this, and they have concrete steps you can take.
So to minimize the risk.
Yeah, to protect yourself.
Okay, let's go through those.
All right, so step 1, review the access controls on your CRTs.
The custom shelves, right?
Exactly. Make sure you have the right locks on the right doors.
So only authorized people can get to that sensitive customer information.
That's it.
Okay.
Next, set sensitive fields to none for public access.
Okay.
This is huge.
Why is that?
Even if the whole CRT has some restrictions, you want to make sure those individual fields with sensitive data are totally locked down.
So it's like having a vault inside the warehouse for the really valuable stuff.
Exactly. Even if someone gets into the warehouse, they can't touch the crown jewels.
I like it.
Yeah, it's an extra layer of protection.
Good to know. Is there anything else businesses should keep in mind?
Yeah, if you're really worried or if you handle super sensitive data like medical records or financial stuff, you might want to think about taking the affected sites offline for a bit.
Whoa, really?
Yeah, I know it sounds extreme.
Yeah, is that really necessary?
It can be. Think of it like closing a store temporarily to do a security check.
Okay.
It's better to inconvenience people for a little while than risk a major data breach.
So you're weighing the inconvenience against the potential damage.
That's right. And it's important to remember, just putting a password on the site won't necessarily fix this.
Because the vulnerability is in those APIs, right?
Exactly. A password won't stop that.
So taking the site offline is really the safest option in some cases.
And remember, if this all sounds overwhelming, there are people who can help.
Right.
Get in touch with a NetSuite consultant or a security expert who knows this platform.
Right.
They can do a security audit, help you configure everything, right?
So it's like hiring a security consultant for your house.
Exactly.
They'll tell you what kind of locks and alarms you need.
Yeah, you don't have to do this alone.
Right. Okay. Good to know.
And the big takeaway here is this isn't just a NetSuite problem.
Okay.
This kind of stuff can happen anywhere.
On any platform.
Yeah, so stay informed, be proactive, and get expert help when you need it.
All great advice. So just to sum up, we've got this potential data exposure risk with NetSuite's SuiteCommerce platform, a whistleblower who's trying to warn everyone, and investigations all over the globe.
Yeah, it's a lot.
It's a complex situation for sure.
It is, but for our listeners, the most important thing is to take control of your data security.
Right.
Don't wait for a whistleblower or a data breach to happen.
Yeah, be proactive.
Exactly. Stay informed. Make sure you're doing everything you can to protect that sensitive information.
Couldn't agree more. This really shows how crucial data security is these days.
It really does.
And remember, this is still developing.
Okay.
We'll keep following it and give you updates as we learn more.
We will.
In the meantime, you can find links to all the sources we talked about, plus more info on our website.
Check it out.
Yeah, be sure to do that.
And remember, knowledge is power.
Absolutely.
The more you know about this kind of stuff, the better you can protect yourself and your business.
That's it for this deep dive into the NetSuite vulnerability. Until next time, stay curious, stay informed, and keep on learning. Okay, so we're diving into some pretty interesting stuff today. Those documents you gave us, they really hint at a potential cover-up with Oracle and their NetSuite platform.
It's a story that seems to have everything. Alleged security vulnerabilities, a whistleblower, potential corporate retaliation. It's a bit like a digital detective story where we're trying to piece together what happened and when.
Yeah, and what's really interesting is the whistleblower in this case isn't just some random employee, right? They're a whole consulting group.
Exactly. And not just any consulting group. This one is super experienced with NetSuite, especially their SuiteCommerce platform.
Which means they were in a prime position to both spot these vulnerabilities and understand the potential fallout.
Absolutely. And the vulnerabilities they found aren't exactly small potatoes either. The documents suggest this could be a really big data breach.
Yeah, potentially exposing all sorts of sensitive information, personal stuff, financial stuff, maybe even health information, right?
Right, and that's where things get really serious. I mean, think about the legal and financial implications for Oracle if something like that happened.
Exactly. And on top of that, there's the allegation that Oracle knew about these problems and chose to just quietly fix them without telling anyone.
Yeah, no customers, no regulators, no one. It's that lack of transparency that makes this whole thing so concerning.
Absolutely. So to really get a handle on this, we need to go back to the beginning, like before August 2024. That's when this consulting group was raising all these red flags about SuiteCommerce.
Especially about the types of data that would cause Oracle a whole heap of trouble if it ever got out.
And the kind of trouble that could affect tons of people if their information was compromised.
We're talking potential violations of HIPAA, that's the Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act, right? That's some serious stuff. There are very strict rules around protecting health information.
Yeah, you don't mess around with HIPAA. A breach that big could mean huge fines and a serious hit to Oracle's reputation.
Exactly. So this consulting group, they're trying to raise these concerns internally, but it seems like they weren't getting anywhere.
Right, like they hit a wall, and that's when they took a pretty big step. In August 2024, they issued a public security bulletin.
They basically went public with their concerns. It was a way of warning everyone about these vulnerabilities.
Yeah, it's a classic whistleblower move. They put their own reputation on the line to try and get someone to listen.
It shows just how seriously they took these vulnerabilities. They felt they had to do something, even if it meant risking their business.
Now, how did Oracle respond to this? Well, they did issue a patch called the DLST patch to fix some of the issues.
But here's the thing. They didn't tell anyone about it. Not customers, not regulators.
It was this quiet little patch, almost like they were trying to sweep the whole thing under the rug.
That raises a lot of questions. Why the secrecy? Were they hoping no one would notice? Were they trying to avoid responsibility?
And it's not just outsiders who started noticing something was off. Fast forward to January 2025, and there's this meme the consulting group posted on LinkedIn.
Yeah, a seemingly harmless meme, but it accidentally revealed that even people inside NetSuite didn't know about the security issue or the patch.
I mean, think about that. For a company handling such sensitive data, that lack of internal awareness is a big red flag.
It suggests there were serious breakdowns in communication, and maybe even a lack of proper security protocols.
Yeah, not a good look. And that's when things really escalated. The consulting group decided to take their concerns to the next level.
They filed formal whistleblower complaints with several global regulatory bodies.
We're talking the FCC, the SEC, GDPR authorities in Europe, even some state attorneys general. These are not groups you want to be on the wrong side of.
These are powerful organizations with the ability to launch investigations, hand out fines, and even force companies to change how they do business.
So this is no longer just about a technical issue. It's become a full-blown legal battle with serious consequences.
And while the allegations are still being investigated, the evidence the consulting group has compiled is pretty damning.
It really paints a picture of a potential cover-up, a culture of silence, and a company that might not be taking data security as seriously as it should.
And that's a big deal. It has the potential to affect all of us in some way.
And it's important to remember this is still unfolding. We're going to keep digging into this in the next part of our deep dive.
We'll be looking at specific allegations of retaliation against the consulting group and what might happen to Oracle as a result.
So stay tuned because this story is far from over.
One thing that's really jumped out at me in this whole thing is the sheer amount of evidence the consulting group has, Like, they didn't just complain, they documented every single thing.
It's true, yeah. They have system records from NetSuite, user logs, IP addresses, the works. It's not just, like, their word against Oracle's.
Right. And then you've got those public comments on LinkedIn, internal Oracle communications that seem to back up their claims. It's a pretty detailed picture they've painted.
And it really gives you a sense of how seriously they took this whole thing. Like, they knew they had to build a rock-solid case.
Especially going up against a company like Oracle.
Exactly. And it's not just about the technical stuff either. They're also saying Oracle retaliated against them for speaking out.
Yeah, that's where it gets even more interesting.
In the documents, they talk about being excluded from partnership programs, like they were shut out of opportunities that used to be open to them.
And then, of course, there are those alleged threats they got through LinkedIn messages, which is, well, pretty unsettling.
It's kind of a classic David and Goliath story, right?
Yeah, totally. This smaller group taking on a giant corporation, risking their whole business to do what they think is right.
It raises the question, how effective are whistleblower protections, really? I mean, are they enough to stop companies from retaliating?
Right, and what does it say to other potential whistleblowers? If you see someone get punished for speaking out, are you going to want to come forward?
It's a tough situation. You want to encourage people to be transparent, to hold companies accountable, but you also have to protect the people who are brave enough to speak up.
Because in the end, a culture of silence helps no one.
Exactly. If people are afraid to say something, then problems just get bigger and bigger until they finally explode.
And everyone loses.
It's all about creating a space where people feel safe to raise concerns, where they know they'll be heard, where companies actually care about doing the right thing.
And in this case, it seems like the consulting group felt they had no choice but to speak up, even if it meant putting themselves at risk.
They were kind of like the canary in the coal mine, warning everyone about a potential danger that most people didn't even see.
And they set off a whole chain reaction, didn't they?
Exactly.
I mean, these investigations could have huge consequences for Oracle, and maybe even change the way the whole tech industry deals with data security and whistleblowers.
It shows that even one small group can make a big difference when they're willing to stand up and say something.
It's about accountability. It's about companies being responsible not just to their shareholders, but to all of us.
All right, so as we head into the final part of our deep dive, we're going to be looking at what could happen next.
We'll examine the potential fallout from these investigations and explore the bigger picture for the tech industry and beyond.
So we've been looking at this case like a puzzle, right? Putting all the pieces together, the timeline, the evidence, trying to figure out what Oracle was thinking.
And now that we're here at the end of our deep dive, I guess the big question is, what happens next? What are the consequences of all this?
Yeah, what's the fallout going to be?
Well, this could be a real turning point for the tech industry, not just when it comes to data security, but how companies treat whistleblowers, how they handle people who disagree.
Like, will this change the game?
Potentially, yeah. If the investigations find that Oracle messed up, the penalties could be huge.
We're talking massive fines, right? Maybe even sanctions.
Oh, absolutely. They could even be forced to make big changes to how they handle security and transparency.
But, I mean, even beyond the legal stuff, there's the whole issue of their reputation.
Yeah, that's a big one. In this day and age, bad news spreads like wildfire. A scandal this big could really hurt Oracle's image.
Make people think twice about doing business with them.
Exactly. Lose customers, investors, the whole 9 yards. And remember, this isn't just about some technical glitch, right?
Yeah, it's about trust.
Right. Trust, transparency, and what happens when someone tries to speak up and gets shut down.
And those are issues that go way beyond just the tech world.
Absolutely. Every company, every organization has to deal with these things.
It's a reminder that trying to protect your reputation in the short term by, like, sweeping things under the rug.
Right. That can really backfire in a big way.
If you don't deal with problems head on, if you silence people who are trying to raise concerns, those problems are just going to keep growing.
And eventually they explode and cause even more damage.
So what's the lesson here for Oracle, for other tech companies, for everyone, really?
Well, maybe it's time for the whole industry to take a good, hard look in the mirror.
At how they're handling data security, how they're communicating internally, and most importantly, how they treat people who raise concerns.
Imagine a world where whistleblowers are seen as, like, valuable assets.
Instead of threats.
Right, where their insights are welcomed, acted upon,
Where companies actually want to do the right thing.
This case could be the push we need to get there, to a place where companies prioritize ethical behavior above everything else.
And for you, our listener, I hope this deep dive has been more than just an interesting story. It's a reminder to stay informed, stay curious, and keep asking tough questions.
About how your data is being handled, how companies are operating.
Don't be afraid to hold people accountable.
Exactly, because the digital world is constantly changing, and it's up to all of us to make sure it changes for the better.
So that's it for this deep dive. We'll be keeping an eye on this story as it develops, bringing you updates and analysis along the way.
But for now, keep digging, keep exploring, and keep the conversation going.
Thanks.